Howdy, folks. This is just a reminder that if you like this content, you can help me out by liking, commenting, and especially by subscribing. And be sure to hit the bell notification so you always get notified whenever I have a new video. Hope you enjoy this. Giovanni Benjamin says, how would you go about proving the divinity of Christ in the Synoptic Gospels? Well, there are a number of ways to do this. I actually have multiple books that I've read on this subject. One of the simplest to show is in Mark chapter 14, where Jesus is in front of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish ruling council, and he's being accused right and left of different things. And the high priest says, tell us plainly, are you the Messiah, or not? And Jesus says, yes, and from now on, you're going to see the Son of Man coming with clouds of heaven. And at this point, the high priest says, he tears his clothes and says, you've heard the blasphemy. Why do we need more witnesses? Okay, how did Jesus just commit blasphemy? Because the high priest says he did. He says he just blasphemed. But claiming to be the Messiah, that's not a blasphemy. Even claiming to be the Son of God, well, the kings of Israel were regarded as sons of God, adopted sons of God. So even claiming to be the Son of God, that's not blasphemy. So Jesus has just done something that in a first century context was understood as speaking against God, as blasphemy in the true sense. So what did he just do? Well, the answer is he quoted Daniel. There's a passage in Daniel where Daniel is having a vision and he sees the Ancient of Days, that's God the Father, come and sit in a throne, and there are these other thrones that are also set in heaven. And then he sees this one like a son of man. That's the phrase Daniel uses. It's a heavenly figure, looks like a son of man, looks like a human being, comes riding up on a cloud. Well, you know who gets to ride the clouds in the Old Testament? God. So here we have someone who looks like a human riding a cloud up to God. Well, it turns out, and recent scholarship has made this clear, it turns out that the Jewish understanding of the Godhead was more flexible than a lot of people assume in biblical times. It included the idea that there could be more than one divine figure. And so you had, it's not just this passage in Daniel. There are other passages too in the Old Testament that do something similar. There were Jews who, in Jesus' day, who would talk about, there's Yahweh. He's the great God, the creator of everything. And then there's the lesser Yahweh up in heaven too. There's this second power in heaven alongside God. He's the little Yahweh or the lesser Yahweh or the second Yahweh, but he's divine too. And so this is called the two powers in heaven doctrine. And there have been a number of books written about this. Well, that's what Jesus is referring to here in Mark 14. By quoting about how, and from now on, you're going to see the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He's saying, I'm that guy. I'm the second Yahweh. And that's why the high priest tears his garments and says, you've heard the blasphemy, because Jesus is claiming to be divine here. He's claiming to be God. He's the little God, the second God, the lesser Yahweh. And it's right there. You just need the cultural background to identify what is under discussion. And there are a lot of other passages in the Synoptic Gospels that reveal Jesus's divinity. You have, like, at the beginning of the beginning of Mark's Gospel, you have John the Baptist showing up saying, quoting Isaiah, make straight a way for the Lord. And the Lord there is Yahweh. But who is John the Baptist preparing the way for? It's Jesus. And there's been a bunch of literature on this. Two authors that are particularly known for this are Larry Hurtado, Hurtado, and Richard Bauckham, Bauckham. If you look up Richard Bauckham and Larry Hurtado's books on Jesus and his divinity, they'll go through all this in a lot of detail. There are other books too. And one thing that also can be helpful to point out is because people have this idea that the idea of Jesus being divine arose slowly. And the same people who say that tend to say, oh, but St. Paul's letters are the earliest documents in the New Testament. Well, those are sort of half-truths. But St. Paul is convinced that Jesus is God. And if his documents really are the earliest in the New Testament, then they're even earlier than the Gospels. And so we've got documentation of Christians believing Jesus was God from before, when people think these documents were being written. So this is not some late development.
And before we go, just one more reminder that if you like what you've watched, you can help me out by liking, commenting, and especially by subscribing. I'm trying to grow my channel, and I'd really appreciate your help. Thank you, and God bless you.